Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. And of course, you good old boys from Canada, you know we love you, Canada. We also love the Big C tribe, so we're not forgetting you good old boys. But Big C, there's no one we love more than you good old boys down south, and the land of the free, and the home of the brave. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
We're going through a depression moonshine down here. You know, we had no football this past weekend.
Yeah.
So we're trying to figure out what's the meaning of life. And so, we pulling out all the old, VHS tapes and everything and just reminiscing.
That's funny. We could always reminisce. That's funny that you guys are having to come down from the high you get from football season. I know it is a little bit different. We got the Olympics going on. In Korea, we have the NBA, of course, in the mid, coming up on the All-Star break. We have the NHL in full swing, and Major League Baseball is getting ready for spring training. Golf is all right in the swing of things, coming up on the Masters. We just had this great tournament out here in Pebble Beach in California. But I want to start your thoughts on what happened with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And sometimes when you go out and buy a car, you go out and test drive the car, you don't just buy it. So they had the chance after all the trades to see if they actually made the right choice, and they've added some good players to their arsenal, Big C. I thought Cleveland looked like the team that played in the finals last year as opposed to the team prior to the Boston game that wasn't getting along very well. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, what they did was they added some energy to the roster.
Yeah.
Well, when you go out and you get a bunch of old superstars, in their mind, they're still young superstars.
Yeah.
Because they still think that they can do what they did 8 years ago. Which is not going to occur.
Yeah.
In this day and age of the influx of young athletes.
Yeah.
And when you saw that the guys that Cleveland brought in, the number one thing no one took notice of when Cleveland brought these players in, they brought in 4 players from losing rosters.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Well, what happens when you bring players from a losing roster to a winning roster is that they don't want to be that weak link in the chain.
Yeah.
To know that they have been losers and now they're on a winning franchise and they have to pick up their game.
Yeah.
And that's what you saw in this blowout versus Boston over the weekend. They had one of the best point differentials of the season in that game, and everybody contributed, Charlton.
Yeah.
But what happened when you had all those old hats in, and I can't help but talk about myself sometimes.
And we all get older, Big Z.
is that you get complacent in your game.
Yeah.
And all of those guys have been stars in their own right on various franchises.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now all of a sudden they all had to come into Boston. I mean, not Boston, but Cleveland, and take a second and third seat.
Yeah.
It's like their games did not click.
Yeah.
And, but management recognized that before the trade deadline. They said, okay, all of what we tried experiment-wise just wasn't there.
Yeah.
And that's the luxury of being owner of property, is that when you don't like the property, you can sell it.
You can
do it all and that's what you saw. These owners of some property said, the value is not going to return on investment. So I'm not getting the rent that I expected out of this. So let me move this on to another buyer.
That's funny.
So that's what they did in Cleveland.
I do want to say today is a beautiful February the 12th, 2018 in the land of the free and the home of the brave. And this segment sponsored by your Northern Californian Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. You can drive a car or you can drive a Cadillac. I first got to take a pause. I got to pay homage to our brethren over at ESPN. They were making a commercial, and one of their promos, they put in a laugh track, Big C. Okay, we've seen some of the programs put in the lightning that, Big C has been doing lightning because that's how the universe was started, with lightning strikes. And also, we have this, the laugh track that you get from Hollywood. Johnny Carson was great for the laugh tracks down. He would tell a joke and they had the laugh track. All of Hollywood uses a laugh track. But when I saw our brother, the ESPN, Big C, they have a laugh track too. And they did a commercial. I thought it was so funny. Big C, I want to get your thoughts.
Well, they're the innovators and everything. But they don't tell you that they copy from other people. So,
Yeah.
You know, they're imitators as well as they're originators.
Yeah.
But, you know, you bring these things in, and, I mean, they have so much information to work with. And, you know, they have such a great, you know, department of research. And so they can bring in anything that they want, and they have access, unlimited budget, you know, like the rest of us don't have.
Yeah.
So they can try to outshine you in ways. But, you know, in origination, they don't always do that.
No.
But in creation, they do.
Yeah, I thought that was funny because they just had, I mean, everybody's seen it, but I just thought it was funny how they try to add it, but they didn't have the right flavor like a lot of things that go on. But it's all fair in love and war. I do want to touch on the fact that I look at what happened in Boston, and Cleveland looked like they're the new kid on the block again, and we'll have to see after 10 games of playing together. Obviously, Boston may have been a little bit distracted because they were retiring Paul Pierce's jersey. I know Jesus Sutterworth didn't go. Ray Allen didn't go. He was out playing golf with some good old boys. But the thing with Paul Pierce, obviously, he's a great Celtic. I think Robert Parrish maybe just talking because, you know, they have some of that moonshine up in the Northeast too, big league. And he was saying that.
Well, back in the day, Chief was, you know, he originally started his career in California. When they lived around marijuana recently. But, you know, the Chief was known for, you know, having the peace pipe going long before that.
The peace pipe. I thought that was funny. He said that Paul Pierce was better than Larry Bird. I thought that was funny. So you know he's been doing something to relax Big C. And no matter how great Paul Pierce was, you know, Larry Bird did more than just play basketball for Boston. He was the great white hope in Boston. When Magic Johnson and Larry Bird came into the NBA was kind of like golf is right now without Tiger Woods. They needed an injection of something. And the good old boys that run TV and that run sports, they know that one of the biggest injections of anything to make people pay attention is if you inject race. And to inject race the way they did was to have Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. You know, they're both great athletes. One's black, one's white. Boston leans more to white athletes. That's just a fact. We all know that. And then LA leads more to diversity. You could say the black athlete. So they use that white versus black, East Coast, West Coast, to bring more energy and tension to the NBA. And it worked, Big C. It worked great. And so when Paris comes out and he says that the black guy was the best guy in the history of the Celtics organization, I guess he forgot that Russell played there too, because, you know, sometimes he likes to relax before his interview, Big C. But just people actually got riled up. I thought he was being flippant. Big C, your thoughts on is Paul Pierce better than the great Larry Bird for the Celtics organization? Big C, your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, I mean, if you're waging it by championships, then Bird has the thumb up on it.
Yeah.
If you're looking at the pure total of a career, you know, longevity and points and all-star appearances, then, you know, it's pretty much equal at that point.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you look at Boston, you have to look at the, you know, the ethnic makeup of that area and how people feel about it. I mean, when you look at the Boston Bruins, they're white. You look at the Boston, you know, Red Sox, they're white. You know, the Boston Celtics, they're white.
Yeah.
New England Patriots, one of the whitest teams in the NFL.
Yeah.
Okay? So, you know, that's going to bring some uproar. And when people always say, and you and I go over this over and over, when people start talking about the greatest of all time, and here it is, how can you have a Celtics, you know, ceremony, and you know, you not mention Bill Russell, Casey Jones, you know, Sam Jones. You know, Sam Jones and Bill Russell, you know, these guys win 10 titles together. Yeah. And you're going to say that they're not the good. They got more titles individually than any other Celtics group put together. Yeah. And so, well, when you start doing that, and that's what we talk about, you know, that you got so many people that are in their 30s and 40s and some crossing that half a century mark. Yeah. You know, that don't understand sports pre-ESPN, Charlton. Yeah. And so without that, and because so many people are flipping and don't want to read nowadays, they miss out on some of the greatness that ever occurred. I mean, when you think about some of the greatest sports of all time, Charlton, some of the greatest sporting events, you had to listen to them on the radio. Yeah. You didn't have a highlight reel looping it over and over. Yeah. You had a broadcaster telling you over radio that you were glued to. Yeah. And that was the live action you got. They weren't replays. Yeah. They didn't take you back. You had to pay attention. So you became educated in listening to a sporting event, Charlton. Yeah. And now people are devoid of that education aspect of learning.
Yeah.
And so they think, well, I won't even watch the game. I'll just wait on the highlight film.
Yeah.
And that'll tell me all what the game had to tell.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes you're right. And I think back, and we expound on why I will say image watch. There's something called fact and there's something called fiction. You can always meet that beautiful woman and you think she's going to be yours because you're at you see her at the grocery store, you see her in the nightclub, you see her wherever you see her, or sometimes you see her in the White House, Big C. You can read between the lines with that, but she's not yours. But you can pretend she's yours, so you start acting like she is yours. And the thing for Boston that loves the fact that Larry Bird is their prodigal son, he didn't win more championships. They can't base it on that. So we say championships don't matter, even though we all play for championships. But it is the racial component of that great Northeast region. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I mean, you can go to any region of the country, and people like who they want to like. But for Boston itself, the reason that Larry Bird is considered the greatest Celtic, but he has 9 fewer championships than Bill Russell, Big C, is because championships don't matter. What matters is that in your mind, what matters is what you think people should like, not what really took place. And I think if anything, I think the Boston PD put down some tweet that, and I guess there's some people thinking that maybe that was insulting to African Americans, whether it was or wasn't. The fact that you don't name the guy, you don't crown the guy that's brought you the most championships, the most championship trophies, the most championship banners, the most championship parades, that's not your guy. It's a guy that has 9 fewer championships. And where there's about race, and Big C, that is about race, good or bad, that's what it is, Big C, that make any sense.
Well, Charlton, you think of it, the numbers were opposite of that.
Yeah.
And you think about it, there were some great Celtics, some great white Celtics.
Yeah.
I think about Bob Cousy, who played along with Bill Russell.
Yeah.
And Bill, Bob Cousy has more championships than Larry Bird.
Yep.
But he's not even talked about in the same light because he took a second seat to Bill Russell.
Yeah.
But, they were teammates, and none of them thought that anyone was better than the other, Charlton.
Yep, they were team.
And so, I mean, if you think about it, Larry Bird doesn't have the numbers that a Bob Cousy does as far as a championship.
No.
As a Celtic player. So, I mean, it's hard to look at things through errors because people are benign to the truth nowadays.
Yeah.
And they only want to see what they think is real.
Yeah.
No one wants the facts anymore. It's almost like what we have coming out of the Oval Office, fake news.
Yep.
But the truth, is not the fake news. It's what you're saying about the truth. And so here's a situation in Boston where, the celebratory that went on to celebrate Paul Pierce's great career as a Boston Celtic. Unfortunately, he didn't get a chance to end his career as a Boston Celtic. And I don't like those one-day contracts when a player comes in to sign to retire with a team. That's a farce.
Yeah.
And we've seen so many great players in the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball, go sign these one-day contracts to end their career with a team. The team didn't want them.
Yeah.
So don't give them the one-day contract saying, okay, we're kissing and making up.
Yeah.
You didn't want the guy 2-3 years ago.
Yep.
So why give him a one-day contract?
Yeah.
You got rid of him. You cut him or traded him.
Yeah.
That thought was never looked at with Larry Bird. Paul Pierce maybe should not have left and gone to finish his career elsewhere. He could have just retired at that point. But, it's just like what we said with the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah.
These old guys that keep thinking that they're what they were 8 years ago.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's what Paul Pierce thought when he left the Celtics. He thought he was what he had been 8 years previous to that.
Yeah.
And he wasn't.
Yeah.
The legs were gone. There was no elevation left. There was no speed. He couldn't run. And I think that, GMs around professional sports do young players a disfavor.
Yeah.
When you bring in this old guy that can't play versus this young guy who has a lot of upside. We just saw that with the Cleveland Cavaliers revamping their roster.
Yeah.
All of a sudden they're energized.
Yeah.
I mean, none of the guys they got rid of could run with the guys they brought in.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm trying to find out where the intelligence is.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Big C. I got to bring this point up, too, because we were talking about it just last week. And I think, you brought up this great story on Allen Iverson. And we all go through good and bad finances and relationships and all that good old stuff, right? But when I think about something that we talk about, and it goes back to the Emancipation Proclamation and the value of the black athlete. Now, any franchise that has great players, they put their jersey on the rafter. They can retire their jersey, And even if they don't retire their jersey, they'll at least put it up in the rafters so that the next generations of players can come and see this is a great player that we pay homage to. So we love them so much for what they did for our organization. We're going to take a jersey and we're going to hang it from the rafters. And I know we talked about annuities. Now, why are we going to try to say anything to wealthy people? Because not everybody stays wealthy. But for the owners, it is great to show love and appreciation for someone that used to be a great player. But what if Paul Pierce owned 1% of the Boston Celtics? If you love somebody, you don't just tell them, you give them something, right? You bequeath something to them. You do what you do with your co-owners of the team. They all have ownership in it. If Paul Pierce or someone like Larry Bird or someone like Bill Russell, if the organization loved them so much, Big C, that they made them part owner in some capacity, wouldn't that mean a lot more to that player that says, hey, we love you, thank you for your time here, and here's some money? Big C, is that too much to ask, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you got to understand the athletic money has only gotten good in the past decade, realistically.
Yeah.
And, like I said, I'm still mad at my parents for having me 40 years too soon.
Yeah.
And so when we go around and we look at the money that these guys make, and we talked about Jimmy Garoppolo just last week.
Yeah.
Made more money in this contract that he signed than Joe Montana
and Steve Young.
Steve Young made combined as 49 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
You think about that. They got 5 Super Bowls, and you got a kid that's won 5 games with the organization.
Yeah.
and he gets more money than even those two combined.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the justification of money out there now, Charlton, is hard to fathom.
Yeah.
We're looking at the NBA, where you got players going out getting $200 million contracts.
Yeah.
Salary caps. I'll go back to Magic Johnson when he signed his 25-year, $25 million contract with the Lakers back in the early 80s.
Yeah.
And everyone thought that was the most money you could ever make in life.
Yeah.
Magic got a $25 million, 25-year contract with the Lakers.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, Magic is rich forever.
And that's 5 championships too, Big C. 5 championships with that money.
But this is long before he won all those championships,
Yeah.
Charlton.
Yeah.
And no one could believe that the $25 million would be paid to one player for 25 years. They were trying to, figure that out math-wise.
Yep. Yep.
That's not even, that $25 million is not even a top 10 contract in the NBA now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's probably not even in the NFL anymore. But think about that. $25 million, and everybody went apoplectic when Magic got $25 million back in the early 80s.
Yeah.
Now, when you see a player getting a max deal,
Yep.
where a max deal can get up to $37 million in one season now.
Yeah.
LeBron is eligible for $37 million next year in a max deal.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Magic got 25 for 25 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
LeBron
Something.
will make next year 37 for 1 year.
Wow.
37 for 1 year. So when we talk about the escalation of money and athletes and why coaches move on and players don't take those max deals and roll them into a part of the organization, which if I'm max deal, then that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Make me part of the organization. I understand the money. That's great. That max deal is only a 7-year deal.
Yeah.
That organization is a lifetime deal.
Yeah.
Don't give me that cash. Give me a percentage of the organization. Give me 1%, 0.5%, 2%,
Yeah.
whatever, 1.5% of the organization.
Yeah.
Make me an owner for life so that my family never have to worry about it. They won't have anything to worry about, Charlton, with a $200 million contract. Trust me.
Right. Yeah.
But when you own something and you own a part of an organization for life, even when that organization sells, Charlton, you don't have to sell your part.
Yeah.
You can keep your part, and that only increases the value of it because you got a franchise. Now they go for $2 billion in the NBA.
Isn't that something?
And so that means that you have wealth. Not rich, but you have wealth because you have leverage. You can leverage that against anything you want. So what do you have as collateral? Well, I own 2% of the Cavaliers.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And see, you know what? I love that you brought that point up because sometimes if you're not used to being treated well, then you don't know what it feels like to be treated well. Guys that fly first class, they're treated well, but guys who own their own airplanes, they're treated a lot better. And when I look at the fact that as you know more, you should do more. I bring up there's an organization in Sacramento Kings in Northern California. Just about 2 years ago, they opened Golden One Center. This is their second season there. And when they moved from Sleep Train Arena, which used to be known as Arco Arena, they got about It's a $500 million facility. They borrowed about $250 million from Sacramento, County Sacramento, and the city, and how they raise taxes for hotels and whatever they do, bonds, all that. So now when they bought the organization, they were worth just under $1 billion, Big C. Now they're worth nearly $2 billion. Now, I doubt if they're going to hold a press conference to give back the $250 million the same way they got the $250 million. They could easily do that, and that money could be ferreted out back into the school districts for the people that want to support the Kings, right? And not just Sacramento. A lot of people all over the country have done that. A lot of the sports teams, they come in and get half the money, and then their profit goes up double and triple, and they don't give any of that money back, Big C. At least they don't make it public if they do. And when you look at a player, the same thing we're talking about is nothing other than what Magic Johnson's already done with the LA Lakers. And I'm going to throw out a scenario that may or may not make sense to people who are just sycophants and all they care about is, hey, the guy can shoot. We love his jersey. We love all these great things. Steph Curry does not have a no-trade clause in his contract as far as I know. They're moving into the Chase Center in 2019. They have one more season at the Oracle Arena. If there's no ownership offered to him to own a percentage of the Golden State Warriors, which value will skyrocket through the roof, Big C, would you believe that Magic Johnson knows what ownership means? And I wouldn't be too surprised if they could court Steph Curry and say, look, we're trying to do something great. That's all the money in the world. Not only if you come to Los Angeles, we're going to give you ownership of the Lakers. A percentage of ownership. That's more valuable than just getting the owners in Oakland making it rain. Big C, that's not too far out of reality. Big C, your thoughts?
The reality of the thing now is players want a legacy, Charlton.
Yeah.
And it's not about movement around any longer. I mean, if you can get in one place and stay and spend a decade, spend your career, that's what players want. Stability is the toughest thing in professional sports to have.
Yeah.
And when you look around the history of professional sports, Charlton, if you look at the top 50 NBA players of all time, Charlton,
yeah,
at least half of those guys were traded.
Yeah.
They did not become one of the greatest in their original franchise.
Yeah.
We talk about Wilt Chamberlain, Charlton, the greatness of Wilt Chamberlain.
Yeah.
Wilt Chamberlain didn't start his career with the Lakers, Charlton.
No.
He didn't. He was a 76er when he started.
Kareem, too.
We had players moving around. You talked about the Chief, Robert Parrish, early in the program.
Yeah.
He started as a Warrior. Kareem started in Milwaukee. Dr. J didn't start with the 76ers. He was with the Virginia Squires in the ABA.
Yeah.
And so when you go up and down the list of these great players, Charlton, that have been around in the league, Moses Malone.
Yeah.
Spent his career with, several different teams. Wes Unseld.
Yeah.
Elvin Hayes.
Yep.
Up and down the list, Charlton, these great players.
Yeah.
That are on the all-time list.
Look at Shaq.
Did not finish with these organizations.
Shaquille O'Neal.
Organizations only valued them for the return on the dollar at the time when they felt that they were getting long in the tooth.
Yeah.
Let's move them on.
Yeah.
But the value of an athlete is only the max money that an owner can get out of it.
Yeah.
And so it's like a racehorse. When he's not winning any longer, he's not in the money.
Yeah.
It's time to go.
Yeah.
There was this place down the street that
yeah.
might want to go race.
Yeah, I need some glue for my homework, Big Z, if you read between the lines with that. But I still think about the thing you talked about, and I want to touch on something a little bit later. But the one thing missing from Paul Pierce and how he grew up in Oakland, California, and played great basketball throughout his career, a great Celtic, went to LA for a short time and had some success down in LA with the Clippers. But one thing,
how a guy grew up in Oakland ends up in Kansas. Okay?
Yeah, hey.
I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
You can't even spell Kansas out of Oakland, okay?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you go from living in the Bay Area to one of the most desolate flatland places in America. Figure that out.
Yeah.
What is the drawing appeal of Kansas? I mean, you had a plethora of universities around. I think you got Cal Berkeley, you got Stanford, you got University of San Francisco,
Santa Clara, St. Mary's,
You had a lot of schools right there, but you ended up in Kansas.
hey,
I don't even know if you catch a direct flight out of Oakland into Kansas.
I don't think you can. I think the great actor Jack Nicholson told us He said, you can't handle the truth, okay? It was a movie where he told us you can't handle the truth. Nobody want to know what the appeal about Kansas, Big C. Just let everybody, Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz is from Kansas. But I got to bring something up because it really is a seminal moment for athletes. Whenever there's talk about the league having more revenue coming in the next year and how these owners are going to have more money to play with, to make it rain on athletes, to get them to come there. But I look at Paul Pierce, and his celebration was beautiful. They did a great job in Boston. But something that's conspicuously absent is he doesn't own anything. Now, even when you marry somebody, you give them a ring. You don't just say, hey, pretend you're my wife. I can have why buy the cow when you get the milk for free? I think that's what people say. So if you are an owner, if you really, really love somebody and what they did for you, going from, a small market share to a large market share, from not winning a championship in a decade to winning a championship, it would not be too difficult because they do it for their business partner. They offer them ownership or some shares in that corporation. And if you really want to make a difference in the lives of people who built you up, why not offer some ownership in something? Big C, that's not too much to ask, and that's why I'm saying if LeBron James and Steph Curry and they can see what happened to Paul Pierce, didn't own anything. They can see what happened to Shaquille O'Neal, didn't own anything. They loved him. Tim Duncan in San Antonio, what did he own when they retired his jersey? Nothing. What did Larry Bird own when they retired him? He didn't own anything. It's a new day, Big C. The money's so phenomenal now, they can give ownership as an incentive to come. And that's why I think Steph Curry, and a lot of people don't think about it, but he's not a dumb guy. If they can offer ownership, then he'll be more like Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan than just like Paul Pierce, who gets a celebration and a jersey raised to the rafters. Big C, that make any sense?
Well, Charlton, but if you start handing out the ownership and you give them too much power, the players have more power than what they believe. They just don't know how to exercise it. Anytime the players want more, all they got to do is strike. They just got to walk. And if they do that, there's no revenue coming in from television, from the gate. Who's hurting the most? The owners.
Yeah.
I mean, the players are not going to get paid,
yeah,
but the owners lose credibility.
Yeah.
Because they have unhappy workers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like that's one of the powers that you have as a player. If you're not comfortable with the situation you have. But, you think about the limited ownership in all the professional leagues. They're not willingly going to give up what they have as an exclusive good old boys club. That's something that they don't want to give it. You made mention of flying first class on a plane.
Yeah.
It's nice. But when you fly on your own plane, it's elite, okay?
Yes.
It's elite. That's rare air.
Yeah.
You don't wait on the cocktail waitress. The cocktail waitress waits on you.
Yeah.
Okay? That's what happens when you have your own plane.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's the difference. And so the owners are used to flying on their own planes.
Yeah.
The players are used to flying first class.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Unless they're getting traded, then all of a sudden the owner will send his plane for the player.
Yeah.
Plane, I need him now.
Yep.
And so, but as a player, I think they've gotten to a comfort level, Charlton, that has never been seen before in sports.
Yeah.
When you think about the kind of money that across the table in professional leagues that is being paid to these guys, I mean, it's like, why rock the boat? And that's where the players are dumb to.
Yeah.
It's like the more we pay you, the more we expect for you not to say anything.
Shut up. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's become status quo.
Yeah.
You don't see players looking to strike anymore. I mean, baseball right now, they're looking at all these free agents that are sitting out there. I think they had 166 free agents at the end of last season's baseball season.
Yeah.
They got like 90 left now that are unsigned. And so there's some worry because, spring training starts in a few days.
Yeah.
You got all these players still unsigned. And baseball ownership is starting to play hardball. It's like, why are we keep giving these absorptive contracts?
Yeah.
We're not creating a new fan base.
Yep.
But the players are demanding more. So this is where sports have gotten to. They've gotten to their crescendo of cost factor.
Yeah.
Is that we can't keep paying out max money. I know you spoke about the Detroit basketball arena the other night where the Pistons played.
Yeah.
That, it's about half full every night.
Yeah.
They move, you think about Detroit in the last 30 years. They've moved 3 times. They went from the Pontiac Silverdome.
Yep.
They went out to Auburn Hills, and now they're back downtown in Little Caesars Arena.
Yeah.
And this is the least attendance that they have.
Yeah.
The reason why that is, Charlton, is because white suburbia doesn't want to go downtown into an arena at night.
Yeah.
And watch a game because now they got to go outside, and that's something that's uncomfortable for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they would rather let that franchise suffer than go downtown at night.
Yeah. And I got to bring this up. I want to say that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. And for every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century, and they work with Big C Sports. Whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, a high school team, or your mom and pop soccer leagues, when you reach out to them, let them know Big C sent you at 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. I got to bring up this story that we saw on our Friends Network last night, Big C. And I love watching the networks that have been around since the early 80s. But they did a story that we talk about all the time. We've been doing it for 2 years. And it was called The State of the Black Athlete. Now, I liked the story. It had, I think Miss Hill was on there. And there's another, Sage Steele was doing the narration of the show. And I think they had it in a church. But what I really think about is the fact that they brought up some issues that are very salient to athletes all over them. They had Kobe Bryant. He was a kind of a cameo appearance by video on there, and several other players that were also. But one thing that no one talked about, not even the great Kobe Bryant when they retired his jersey twice, Big C, at Staples Center. Kobe doesn't own any percentage of the LA Lakers. Here's a guy that's one of the most celebrated athletes. And I think it's a new wave of what's coming, because whenever they talk about more money coming, it's always for the owners, and we know it's pejoratively white. And I'm just saying that white guys help each other when it comes to business. They may tell you they love you, but if you like me, what did Beyonce tell you? What Beyonce tell you? If you like it, you should have put what on it? You should have put a ring on it, Big C. Is that what she told us? Well,
put a ring on it.
She told Jay-Z, you better put a ring on it, and he did. And I'm just saying the consciousness of saying, please let us play in the NBA, please let us play in the NFL, please let us play Major League Baseball. How about treat me the way you treat the owner? I'm not saying for everybody, Big C, but for the marquee players. Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan have already laid the precedent as to how it should happen. So that's why when I like the Paul George, ceremony, it's still empty because he has nothing outside of a jersey and an appreciation. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at the show that was on the net the other night, and as you said, we talk about that on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And we talk about the game of the African-American athlete in the sports world, Charlton, over the last 50 years.
Yeah.
But you got to look at, when there's a problem socially, that's where America turns to, is they look at the black athlete.
They look at the black athlete,
what's wrong?
Yeah.
What's wrong? You guys are making all this money. Why isn't everybody happy?
Yeah.
This problem started with slavery in America.
Yeah.
And everybody wants the blacks to say, well, what's wrong?
Yeah.
Why should white America ask black America what's wrong?
Yeah.
Because white America created the problem, Charles.
Yeah.
Well, when you think about all the professional sports leagues in America, when they started, African Americans were not allowed to participate. They were not allowed to participate in the NHL.
Yeah.
They were not allowed to participate in Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
The NFL, the NBA. African American athletes were banned from playing in these sports, even college football.
Yeah.
African American athletes were not allowed to participate in the NCAA when it was brought about, Charles.
Yeah.
African Americans have always been set on the back burner. So there's never been a chance of equality.
Yeah.
Even though the advancement over the last 50 years, Charlton, with the African American athletes in the sports society world, Charlton, that still does build a toehold on these things, Charlton, because it's always asked, why doesn't the African American athlete speak out for their community?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why doesn't America speak out for the African American community?
Yeah.
Because white America can't recognize what's wrong from an African American perspective.
Yeah.
Because they don't live in that world, Charlton. They don't have to go through the hiccups that African Americans do in sports and in society.
Yeah.
You're not faced with that. And that's not making a racial connotation. That's making a factual connotation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that, it's always talked about when people, well, they must have done something wrong. Why do they have to have that statement that they did something wrong, Charlton?
Right.
Why can't they be pulled over unjustly? And that happens more often than not.
Yeah.
When we look at the mass incarceration rate in America, Charlton, that's not by chance. I think about the largest opiate producer in America.
Yeah.
That just now is going to lay off half of its sales force. They produce OxyContin, Charlton.
Yeah.
we look at the opiate epidemic in America where people are saying, well, it's an epidemic now. They're not drug addicts. It's an epidemic.
Exactly.
It's amazing how, when it's looked at from a white perspective, that it's an epidemic.
Yep.
And we can't lock them up. We got to get them help.
Give them treatment.
We got to get them medical treatment.
Yeah.
But when we look at marijuana, that's a habit.
Yeah.
You know, that's an addiction.
Yeah.
And so we got to lock these people up that are using and selling marijuana because they're a menace to society.
Yep.
Now, when you go out and look at how many people were dying from the use of marijuana, very minimal, Charlton. Very minimal.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Look at the number of people that were dying from opiate use. And then when you look at the race of them that were dying from opiate use, it's like, okay, our culture is having a problem, so we got to say it's a medical problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yet, opiate, you know, OxyContin sold $2 billion worth of drugs in America last year, Charlton.
Wow.
OxyContin alone sold $2 billion. So I know Rush Limbaugh and Jim Irsay, contributed,
Yeah.
quite handsomely to that.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
And that's, I'm not being facetious.
It's a fact. They can Google it.
They're both known as OxyContin users.
Yeah.
The owner of the Baltimore Colts, or the Indianapolis Colts,
Yeah.
and Rush Limbaugh, Mr. Talk Radio in America.
Yeah.
Big OxyContin users.
And
But think about it.
Yeah.
They want to, most of them want to blast people in America for using marijuana.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Rush Limbaugh is anti-marijuana in America, but he's pro-OxyContin.
Yeah.
You know, Jim Irsay is quick to suspend the player in cutting if, he's been using marijuana.
Yeah.
But he can use all OxyContin in the world.
Well,
But
yeah.
When we look at that, white America can't understand black Americans wanting to use marijuana.
Yeah.
Black Americans can't understand white Americans wanting to use OxyContin.
Yep.
But when you look at it from a legal perspective, they're saying they got to help the people out that are using OxyContin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's a menacing drug and it will kill people.
You know-
Marijuana won't kill people, so we need to lock those people up because they're not killing anybody.
And that is a very good point you brought up, because it's just like the story last night that, and again, we've been talking about it for 2 years, but ESPN did a feature on it last night, and, the state of the black athlete. Now, ironically, conspicuously absent were any white reporters to report on their point of view, because it's divisive again, and I think it's done intentional. But when we talk about issues of sexual assault and domestic violence, and we've been doing that at every show that we've had ever since we started 2 years ago, and that's not just a woman issue. We're not asking just women to solve that issue with sexual assault. We're asking men to help solve that issue too. We're not saying put the women out there on an island and solve it on their own. It takes men and women to solve it. The same thing with ending racism. We're not asking people who've been discriminated against to solve it. We're asking the people who benefit from it. I mean, it takes all parties, and I think if they were to do it that way, it would make sense, because I wonder if the sports leaders are going to do a show on the white athlete and some of the challenges that they face in their communities and what they're trying to wipe out. They could definitely trace it back to the OxyContin issue, but I keep saying that sports will bring our society together if we're honest.
Well, Charles, think
Yeah.
about this.
Yeah.
All professional sports leagues have passed out OxyContin to their players, okay?
Yeah.
They passed out OxyContin, but they won't pass out marijuana.
Yeah.
Think about that. And now, the United States admitting that opiates is an epidemic.
Yeah.
That it's a killing drug.
Yeah.
But you give it legally to athletes. So think about that.
Yeah.
Every professional organization in America, every professional sports team, has doled out OxyContin to its players.
Yeah.
It has.
Yeah.
But if you test for it, it's an ancestor because the team data team.
Yeah.
They can give you legal opiates.
Yeah.
But if you test for marijuana THC in your system, you get suspended for 4 games. Now, I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
If you test for marijuana, you get suspended for 4 games.
Yeah.
You test for OxyContin, you're okay to play. Which one?
Yeah.
And America's smart enough to realize this. Could you function on 1 joint of marijuana versus 40 milligrams of OxyContin?
That's a good point.
Which one would you feel safer with driving in the car?
That's a good point, Big C. So when ESPN touched on the thing with the black athlete and what the protesting was all about, it's really just calling attention that Colin Kaepernick praised him so much, but they still focus on the flag. It's never been a flag issue. It's almost asking, is sexual assault about, dating? It's not about dating. Assault is assault. And even President Trump won't even talk about sexual assault. and how to defend women.
But Charlton, is sexual assault respecting the flag in the military? I want Americans to really say that. Tell me that sexual assault and abuse of women in American society is that respecting the military and respecting the flag.
Yeah.
Because the flag, if you look at what the flag stands for, it says justice for all.
Yeah.
So, one sovereign nation.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that you allow men to assault these women, and you back them up with the flag and the military.
Yep. Yeah.
That's not anti-American to go out and assault a woman.
Isn't that something?
There was two gentlemen dismissed from the White House.
Yeah.
Trump staff.
Yeah.
For assault and violence against women.
Yeah.
And Trump came out and said, I believe these guys.
Yeah.
You know, why did you believe women?
Yeah.
That black guy on the picture doesn't mean anything.
Yep.
You know, she could have fallen, here in the counter. That doesn't prove that it came from his fist.
Yeah.
You know, this is what the president said.
Now, that's
as well as any other thing he said against women.
Big C, that is a very powerful point. I would ask any man out there and woman too, if you come home and your daughter has a black eye, or your wife has a black eye, if you didn't cause it, wouldn't you call 911 and say someone's been assaulted that I love, that your spouse or your daughter's been assaulted? But President Trump defended the guy that his wife said did it. For all the women who think, well, how do we know? If you've ever been assaulted, if you've ever had a daughter assaulted, or a mother assaulted, or one of your female friends assaulted, if we don't stand up for those women, we don't ask them to stand up for themselves. We say everybody should be a part of that solution, because the president won't do it. And that's why it's so important that don't just blame the black athlete for whatever goes wrong that they're trying to bring attention to. I think sports is great, Big C, but if we have a way to help people, I think that's so important and so valuable. And I appreciate the show that they did last night, but they still made it about, let's put all the black people in the room and 2 black reporters and no white people, because white people can't identify with assault or discrimination or racism or any of those ills that the country's gone through. I think that's where they missed it. If they want to solve it as a society, you got to put some of your white reporters in there too and have them take it back to the community. What can they do to make it better? Just the same way we don't just discuss sexual assault with women only, we bring men to the plate and say, what can we all do to make it easier on men and women? Big C, does that make any sense? Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, from a media perspective, Charlton, it's only a black problem in America.
Yeah.
Injustice.
Yeah.
And that's because it doesn't happen in their neighborhoods, Charlton.
Yeah.
On their side of town, to their family members, it doesn't happen. The people who cover these events, the producers and the directors, Charlton, they don't live in the neighborhoods where these things happen.
Yeah.
The policemen are their friends, they're their neighbors, they know them, the family's known them for decades. But, when African Americans have always spoke out since slavery, Charlton, of injustice.
Yeah.
When you talked about Andrew Jackson taking back the 40 acres and a mule.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
It said, no, they don't deserve anything, regardless of what they built this country into being.
Yeah.
We're not going to give them anything, because now all of a sudden we give them equality.
Yeah.
And as long as equality doesn't exist in this country, Charlton, we'll always have this plight.
Yeah.
And it's easy to recognize what you don't see.
Yeah.
And so when white America doesn't see these things other than in a news broadcast now, and we see it too often of an unarmed African American being shot, being pulled over, and people will always say, and we always get these reports that the officer feared for his life.
Yeah.
Okay, a guy is walking away from you, and I'd like to ask white America, when was the last time that they feared for their life when they were pulled over by law enforcement?
Yeah.
When was the last time they felt themselves walking away from law enforcement and that officer feared for his life because you were walking away from him and you're 50 feet away from him?
Yeah.
And that officer could say, well, this is fear of my life.
Yeah.
Or, did they go for that officer's taser or gun? If somebody is down on the ground and you have a handcuff on you, and the officer said, well, I felt that he was going for my gun. Okay? But you had him in handcuffs. You had one hand cuffed and the other one in your hand, but you felt the guy was going for your gun.
Yeah.
So, until we see these things, and I always look at this retrospective, and I don't want to see any American losing their lives by another American, whether it's law enforcement or not.
Exactly.
it's just too hard on too many people. You destroy too many families and lives.
Yeah.
If it was African-American cops shooting white pedestrians at the rate that African-Americans are killed in America, Chelsea,
Yep.
we would have a civil war in America. There would be an outright cry against black law enforcement if they were killing white citizens because they said they felt the fear of their lives.
Yep.
And there are things that white citizens will say to a black law enforcement officer, Charlton, that are worse than any African American saying to a white law enforcement officer, Charlton.
Yeah, and that's why.
But they don't shoot them. They don't shoot them.
Yeah, we've seen that too, and people can look at, just Google the Kerner Commission. If you doubt anything, Google it. We're big on saying Google something because I want you to do your own independent study for anybody that wonders what we're talking about. Google the Kerner Commission, you'll see it. So when ESPN tried to do something for the black athlete, again, they participated in segregation all over again. I didn't see any of our famous white reporters that I see on newscasts whenever they're covering a sporting event, the ones that get the media passes, that have their own talk shows. I didn't see any equal time, the way they sit down and have a panel of people who could do pro and con, whether they believe or not, Big C.
You put Sage Steele out there, Charlton. She's an African-American female, okay?
Yeah.
She's not an African-American male.
Yeah.
You know, and so they toss her out there in a tight red dress and say, okay, you're going to be Americana. You're going to represent the white side here because you're neutral.
Yeah.
And she was a neutral reporter, Charlton.
Yeah.
So she hasn't had to deal with these things. And if she had, she wasn't going to bring her personal, life into that.
Yeah.
Her family members and stuff. She was not allowed to put that into the broadcast.
Yeah.
But I think where ESPN missed the boat last night, Charlton, is that they needed to bring some people in, some families in, that people have had lost people because of this, Charlton.
Yeah.
And there's been athletic families that have lost members because of this, Charlton.
Yeah.
Not just private citizens, but athletes' families that have lost people.
Yeah.
And they need to bring that in to get a true perspective.
Yeah.
They do. And when you don't do that, Charlton, then it's always just a black problem. It's a black athlete problem. And because you only had African Americans on the program, Charlton, and it was a sports program.
Yeah.
America thinks that black athletes should solve the problems for black America.
Yep.
Not the white politicians.
Yeah.
Not white law enforcement, but the black athlete. We don't call on politicians, and that's where they missed the boat last night. Why were there not any white politicians participating in this? Because they make the laws.
Yeah.
Why weren't there any governors, any senators, any of these people in there?
They had a pastor. They had a pastor as if he has any power, Big C. That's what they brought in as the authority.
You give a pass to authority and tell the black athlete, you need to figure out the problems of black society.
Yeah.
We're not going to leave it up to the politicians, to our elected officials, those who write and pass the laws.
Yeah.
It's not their job to make society equal.
Yeah.
It's up to the black athlete because you make enough money.
Well, Big C, I thought even more egregious. And again, we can always like and not like something, but when I'm sitting around a group of black and white people to discuss how we can fix this issue, there were no white people on the program. And that was the insulting thing about it. It's almost like having a discussion on let's end domestic violence and you only have women. Even the NFL put men and women in the commercial to end it.
Why wasn't there any management from ESPN there, Sultan?
Well, think about it.
Why weren't there any of the senior broadcasters there from ESPN?
I know it.
The ones who have tenure in there.
Yeah.
Those are the ones you need to put on call.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at, they brought in all the senior broadcasters for Larry Nassar, okay?
Yeah.
The molester from Michigan State.
Yep.
And the U.S. Olympic team.
Yep.
All the senior broadcasters covered him, round tables and everything else. He was upfront news because these were majority young white females that were injured by him.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
But they were. And I mean, I'm not talking about that in light because he was a criminal. He was a heinous criminal.
Yeah.
But I look at how they gave that priority. And when I think about there's more than 200 African Americans that die from mistreatment of social injustice every year.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Every year. And his parade went on for 20 years. But he was enabled and empowered by white men and women of power, okay?
Yeah.
He wasn't empowered by anybody black.
Yeah.
Larry Nassar was empowered by white men and women to do and be allowed to do what he was doing.
Yeah. Well, Big C.
And they brought out their top guns at the network to say, hey, we got to talk about this.
Yeah.
Because this is a knock against white society.
Well, that's a good point.
But they don't bring them out when it's a knock against black society.
That's a good point, Big C. And I just thought another thing that a woman brought up to my attention, a white woman brought up to my attention, looking at the program last night. Jemele Hill was also the same announcer that I think she was suspended for a week or 2 weeks because she mentioned some things about Trump that you can Google, like the sexual assault.
Trump was a bigot.
Yeah, that he was a bigot. Yeah.
And so ESPN suspended her. Matter of fact, she wasn't a host last night. She was sitting in the audience.
In the audience, you're right.
Because she's been removed from the show that she was on with ESPN.
Yeah.
Because of her views on the president. Now, you think about this.
Yeah.
If you're removing an African American woman from her position of power at your network, and Sage Steele did not back Jemele Hill when she was suspended.
No.
Or removed.
Nope.
She said, well, maybe she got what she deserved. That's what she said.
Yeah.
So she was an audience member last night on this show, Charlton.
Yeah.
So she was able to speak more freely.
Yeah.
But the scenario is that you didn't have anybody of power from ESPN from a white perspective sitting in speaking on this. They made it the program a black issue.
They sure did. They pushed it to the side.
Just like the rest of America, it's a black issue.
Yeah.
Whites don't have no problem with this.
Yeah.
These are black issues that they need to deal with. And we constantly see that. And even the network, who makes billions of dollars a year off of black athletes, made this program a racial issue last night. It was a racial divide set by the network.
I think that's so powerful that you brought it up, because I still go back to Jemele Hill was suspended over stating something that's a fact. In ESPN, you would think they could Google, since they Google everything else, you would think they could Google the largest lawsuit, housing discrimination lawsuit in New York. It was against Donald Trump. He and his father. They were the ones who had C on the applications. They marked C on the application for colored people, and they didn't put them in the same housing components that they put the white Americans in. You can Google that. That's a fact. But when she brings up those points in the Central Park 5, where he took out a 4-page ad for the death penalty for 5 innocent black men for allegedly raping a Caucasian woman, it was a fallacy. It was a falsehood. It never happened. But Donald Trump took out a 4-page ad. He never apologized for it. So she brought up some issues, and they suspended her for telling the truth, Big C, and they can Google that too. I just thought that in order to make our world better, we got to do some things that are just the fact, and you can Google the fact whether you like it or not. I do want to close out on one more story, Big C, and the fact that we love sports of all natures. We know that we have the Olympics going on, the Winter Olympics, and we have Norway with 8 total medals, and Norway is leading the pack right now. The Netherlands has 5, Germany has 4, Canada has 4, United States 2, and then there's other countries that come up behind the pack too. But we love the Olympics. It's a worldwide event. And the fact that I think the black athlete, and people may or may not agree with this, but wherever there's a black athlete, the TV ratings are higher, and the money's bigger. And that's something that you can Google also. So I think if we're going to at least attempt to solve this race issue that still goes on, don't segregate your audience. Don't segregate your talk show host. Let's all solve this problem together. I think that's more important than just trying to say, hey, we care about an issue. Let's segregate everybody and have them talk about it because it's not our issue. I think that's important. Big C, I do want to finish with the golf tournament, the Pro-Am in Pebble Beach. What a gorgeous golf course. Now, if you look at the golf course, it was also diverse, Big C. We had some athletes and some entertainers. It was not just an all-white golf course. Just give me your thoughts on how important that is. Potter won $1.3 million purse. Day and Johnson and they came in. Mickelson came in. They were competing for 4th spot. But that's a good tournament. But it was also a diverse tournament. We even had Fitzgerald becoming one of the celebrity golfers that won, I think, for the first time since Dan Marino. Big C, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, he finished first, Larry Fitzgerald, and that's the diversity of Pebble Beach, Charlton, but you're also looking at the diversity of California.
Yeah.
That allows for these opportunities to occur. I mean, the golf course, since, the invention of that game and them to allow integration, has allowed African-American athletes to shine.
Yeah.
And so when you're in an individual sport and you stand out alone, people can't say, well, he's given favoritism.
Right.
Or he got that way because of the team.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a gorgeous backdrop there in Monterey, California.
Beautiful.
So it made me think about my own backyard. You know?
Yeah.
Except that we had more trees.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, when you saw the run-up in this tournament, Charlton,
Yeah.
and you look at the roadblock there at the second where you had 4 guys come in,
Yeah.
you know, Dave Johnson, you know,
And Nicholson.
were right there, and,
Yeah.
and Nicholson. I think those are going to be top contenders for the Masters when they come around, Charlton. But
Yeah.
when you see the momentum and enthusiasm about golf right now, and, you know, Larry Fitzgerald, you know, I think he's been lying about that he's a 10-scratch golf. I think he wants to sit down there about a 2.
Yeah.
You
He
know,
looked good.
I think he was talking about the first 10 holes that he was going to play.
No,
You know,
he looked good.
He hit some beautiful shots, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Some of the great all-time NFL receivers, and you know, to show so well at Pebble Beach, it shows the diversity of the African American culture.
Yeah.
That you're not limited to just being a one-sport person. Jonathan.
Yeah.
People think, well, he's just a football player. No, Jonathan, he's a tremendous talent.
Yeah.
Is what he is, because he went out and played that game as well as guys who play it for a living. I know there's been a lot of talk about Tony Romo getting his card of exemption
Yeah.
to play on the PGA Tour. Well, you know, Larry Fitzgerald is right there in that same neighborhood where he should be considered the day that he retires from the NFL, Charlton.
Yeah.
But, you know, when I look at this, and, you know, they're going to be in Riviera, I think, next week
Yeah.
in the next tournament, and most likely Tiger will be playing in that one. But the viewership, you know, is up on television. The galleries weren't there in Monterey.
Yeah.
But at Riviera, if Tiger's in town, the gallery will double next week, Charlton.
Well, I think that's very well spoken. And the point that you brought up, Big C, about the athletes that can do different things, whether it's Fitzgerald that's playing a multiple sport, or Tony Romo, who's been a multiple sport athlete and now in broadcast, you know, football player for the Dallas Cowboys. And I like the way they bring it together. One thing I'm very proud of is that Clint Eastwood didn't bring that 44 Magnum that he's been famous for in the movie, saying, "Make my day, punk." I'm glad he didn't show up with that, Big C. But what a great tournament that they put on. Jim Nantz doing the play-by-play for golf. And I know everybody's looking forward to the Masters coming up, because that's the golf Super Bowl in a sense. And we love the fact that people can participate. We know the Masters is not without its own problems, without its own bias. And I know sometimes we got to be the vanguards. We got to be the leaders in bringing up issues, because all throughout history it's taken Black Americans to step up first and solve the civil rights issues, and then our white brethren joined us. And, you know, the housing issues and employment issues. We've all been around that. We've all know what it's like to be on both sides of the fence, and that's why it's important that I think when a program like ESPN wants to tackle an issue, whether it's domestic violence or whether it's, you know, some of the causes that affect African American athletes, don't just have black men up there by themselves or black women. Mix up the pot the same way you do with the TV broadcast. Big C, I think that's the most important thing that we can do. Last thing I want to cover with you is just to get your thoughts real quick. The Olympics is great. We know basketball is great, football is great. All the sports are great. But just give me your thoughts one more time on why it's important that we keep talking about the issues that will make life better for the next generation of all people. Big C, your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, I mean, we can talk about it, but until we incorporate white America into that conversation, Charlton, society will maintain itself as status quo. When we don't have our politicians making it normal rhetoric that African Americans deserve their piece of the pie, that we deserve more equality in America, that we cannot have this separation in society that we continuously have.
Yeah.
We can't have social injustice. We need social reform in America. Just like if you can form a tax law, Charlton,
Yep.
in America, you can have social reform. If you can accomplish the things that you want from a one side of the society perspective, because you don't cross the street. You
Yeah.
don't worry what's on the other side of the street.
Yeah.
And that's what America doesn't see. We saw this in this program on ESPN just the other night, Charlton.
Yeah.
They didn't see the other side of the street.
No.
Because there was no white broadcasters or audience members explaining that they don't understand this, that they don't see this, and why does it happen. But you know, until you get white America questioning why,
Yeah.
okay? It's like when we spoke about the Oxycontin versus marijuana.
Yeah.
White America says we have a drug crisis in America.
Yeah.
Because we had white people dying from Oxycontin because one drug company made $2 billion off of this drug last year. Now, that's a lot of users, Charlton.
Yeah.
I know Ursay and your boy...
Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
$2 billion. When you think about a particular industry turning a $2 billion profit.
Wow.
I mean, that's just off of one product, Charlton.
Yeah.
Man, this is the largest drug producer in America. Just that one product of this turned a $2 billion profit.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pills being popped.
Yeah.
But it says America, and we see it on the news nightly, Charlton, that America has a drug crisis.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you only see white Americans, Charlton, every time they're going out administering for this drug usage.
Yeah.
There was a story that was done by NBC Nightly News several months back, Charlton.
Yeah.
Where this police officer in New Mexico found this woman who was using heroin and opiates.
Yeah.
Okay? And she was pregnant.
Yeah.
And he ended up adopting her baby. But they put her in a rehab clinic, Charlton.
Yeah.
They put her in a rehab clinic, which is great.
Yep.
And that's American, Charlton. That's feeling American.
Yep.
But I know of a similar story, Charlton, with an African-American woman.
Yeah.
Who was using crack. Okay? She got 2 years in prison, Charlton, for child endangerment.
Yeah.
She was using crack.
Yeah.
She got 2 years in prison, and the baby was given up for adoption. But the white mother was put in rehab.
Yeah. That's
But the
true.
black mother was put in prison for using crack. The other lady, the white lady, was injecting with a needle heroin, and she got rehab.
Yeah.
So when we talk about
Yep.
social injustice in America, Charlton,
Yeah.
and not having a uniform criminal code, how you treat people,
Yep.
so these were two women, and I don't think either one of them had intentions on harming their baby. They could. They were sick. They had an addiction
Yeah.
that they needed help with. But society felt that the black female needed prison, and society felt that the white female needed rehab. That's social injustice.
That's very well said, Big C. Back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Bundini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you've got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, now that we got the new NBA season starting after the deadline, the trade deadline, I'm looking forward to an exciting last third of the NBA season. Last night, Isaiah Thomas came off the bench in Los Angeles, knocked down 22 points, had 6 assists, Charlton. They're going to have a little bit of a dilemma when this ball kid comes back off the injured list.
Yeah.
Now, which one of these players will be the best spark for the team? I understand you got your franchise set on ball.
Yeah.
But he's not having the point productivity that Thomas is having. If the Lakers are looking to move forward, do you move forward now or do you wait till next year?
Well, Big C, I think that's something we'll have figured out. We can also find out every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and the good old boys down south. We always tell you there's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any woman going through that garbage, please call 911, because no woman should ever have to go through that garbage on her own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.